Hi, I'm Tricia Morris at Club Scrap. Welcome to another Page Kit workshop. This time we're working on the Reef Page Kit. It's an absolute stunner. I am so in love with these pages. You're gonna love them as well. And to get started, I have my instructions printed out here. You don't have to print them. I know a lot of people simply just look at their tablet and that way they save the paper for their scrapbooks. And I'm also using my accordion pocket file. So this has 4 pockets, one for every double page spread we'll be assembling, and the little lip here will just sit underneath the base of your trimmer. I'm also using my favorite trimmer here by Fiskars. We do carry these at Club Scrap, and it's definitely the right tool for the job. So with that, I'm going to set aside the goodies here and keep all of the paper items together. So that includes the photo mats and the die cut, because I'm going to show you some really specific things about how to deal with that. So if you don't have that accordion pocket file, just maintain 4 piles, one for every pair of numbers I'll be calling out. And we can get you set up also with one of those accordion pocket files quite readily. Now, let's get some photo mats filed. We're going to take 2 of the green photo mats, so 1, 2 of this color is the green, and this one we're calling Seafoam. So the green is the darker shade. 2 of those go in pocket 1 and 2. And then you need 2 gold photo mats. So let me find those. 1, 2 of those. Also in pocket 1 and 2. Next up, we're going to find 3 yellow. So 1, 2, 3. All of those go in pocket 3 and 4. 1 gold photo mat, also for pocket 3 and 4. And that leaves 1 green photo mat for pocket 5 and 6. And the remaining 3 seafoam for pocket 7 and 8. With those photo mats filed, I'm going to have you put all of the remaining paper items into a very specific order. So let's start out by locating that printed die cut. You'll notice that all the pieces are loose in the middle but joined on the ends. So go ahead and take that and put it face down on your work surface. And then I'm going to have you find the first sheet of this wavy print. So just one of those prints, put it face down as well, followed by one of the underwater prints. And we're just going to continue with that face down. Next up, the green. Now, this deeper shade of green has a beautiful texture on it, and I do notice that one side seems to have more texture than the other. This is just a little smoother, so I'm going to have that textured side down, followed by one of the yellows. Now, be careful that you don't grab the gold. The gold is much darker, so we're going to go for that brighter yellow. And then for the Cutaparts, those are usually filed on the back of your stack of papers. We're going to find the one that has the darker strips on it first and put that face down. And then the remaining Cutapart that's left, that's this guy, we'll put him face down. Next up, grab the remaining wavy print, face down again, and the remaining yellow plain. So again, that's the brighter shade. And now you're going to find the 2 gold prints. Or sorry, gold planes rather, 2 gold. And those don't have a right or wrong side, so you can just plop them down any old way. Next up, 2 of the seafoam. That's this one with the texture. I'll put the texture side down. And finally, the remaining green texture down and the remaining underwater print texture down. So the reason we did all that, because we were basically working our way from front to back. So now I need to flip all this back over so that this die cut is on the top and we are ready to get rolling with our trimmer. So if this is your first time using the trimmer, just remember that the centimeters are up at the top and your inches are the second row of numbers. To separate all of these little pieces, we are just going to simply place this in my trimmer horizontally. And don't go for the 12, go for halfway between the 12 and the 12 1/4. And I can just see that measurement on the left side. So I'm going to go for basically 12 1/8. And then I'll push on that clear bar to stabilize all the pieces while a blade comes down. And then I want to rotate this 180 degrees. You can already see these pieces are separating. And now I'm going to trim at 12 inches. You can get rid of those 2 little scraps that fell off the ends, and then this should easily come apart. So right away, I have assignments for all of these. So this piece that has the little negative space from the file folder tab, that goes in pocket 3 and 4. And I put it in the pocket at an angle since it's not wide enough for me to put it all the way down in there, which you want to avoid doing. Now this next piece has a little die cut rectangle that needs to pop out. So the rectangle you took out goes in 5 and 6. Yes, I found a home for that. And then the file folder topper, that goes in 7 and 8. Now in this piece, we have this fun little circle right around where that shell is, where that gold colored shell. So I'm going to pop that out. Now the shell goes in 5 and 6, and the piece with the circle goes in 3 and 4. Again, at an angle, so I can still see my numbers and everything. The C fixes everything. Indeed, pocket 7 and 8. And then this next odd strip, it has 2 little die cut circles. You get one over here. They look kind of like bubbles. I thought it was really fun. And then I'm going to take this one out. I didn't use those. So this piece now, I'm going to add, actually there's one more little one right here. Sweet. Okay, this is going to go in 1 and 2. And then we have, this is the life that goes in 3 and 4. And this final strip here, 7 and 8. So everything was used from the die cut except for these 3 little guys. I'm sure you could find a home for those. I'll just set them aside for now. Now this next piece, if you position it so it's vertical, and then on the left side, there is a little white strip. And on the right side, you see it, the color is there, that seafoam color. And instead of using my trimmer, I'm just going to be using a ruler to separate this into some strips so we get that torn edge look. Before I do grab my ruler, I will show you that you can absolutely place this into the trimmer this way, and you can cut it at 9 1/4, which is going to separate between these 2 strips, and then you would slide it down and cut it 5 3/4. But I'm not going to do it that way. I'm just going to tear this, and for that, I'll use my handy grid ruler. So between this half strip and then this full strip, there's a white area. And I will just put the ruler there, make sure it's level. And I'm going to push down on the ruler and tear that piece away by ripping toward me. And this lovely strip here is going to go in pocket 5 and 6. Any kind of straight edge will help. Then I'm going to use 2 full of these stripes and add my ruler between them. And the measurement does not need to be very specific. So I have the measurements, but anyway, 2 strips go in pocket 5 and 6, and the remaining larger section will be placed in pocket 7 and 8. And that is the end of dealing with that print. Now we grab the underwater print, and I want you to add it to your trimmer so it's in a upright position so that the jellyfish should be on your left. And we'll trim at 9 1/2, and that's going to take off the seahorse. 7 3/4, it's just going to give us a little strip. And then 3 3/4, that'll isolate the jellyfish. Okay, so this guy is going to go in pocket 3 and 4 at that angle. Now this next strip that has the urchins on it, we're going to cut it in half at 6. And both of the pieces we made will go in pocket 3 and 4. The next narrower strip, 5 and 6. And finally the seahorse goes in pocket 3 and 4. All right, we've arrived at the green. Let's just make sure you have just 1 sheet of paper here. We'll begin at 10 3/4. So again, to trim this, I find the 10, I go left 3 columns, 1, 2, 3, that's 10 3/4. And make our first cut. Now slide down to a nice whole number of 9. And then 5. Rotate the 5-inch piece so it's horizontal. We'll cut at 11 1/4, 7 1/2, 3 3/4. And that's going to give you 3 rectangles that are the same. Those go in pocket 5 and 6. And there is this little strip here, and believe it or not, we are going to trim this. Let's find 2 1/2. And notice how I'm bringing the strip down low so that the top edge of the paper is aligned with the bottom edge of my inch markings. That way I can see the measurement a little more easily. Now one of these, they're both the same size. One of them is a scrap and the other will go in pocket 5 and 6. Pick up the next strip of green and we'll trim at 6 inches. And both of these rectangles are used in layout 5 and 6. And now we have 2 strips, the widest of the 2 that should be at the top of the pile. That goes in pocket 1 and 2. And then the other strip goes in pocket 5 and 6. All right, we're moving on to the yellow, clipping along here. Our first cut here is 11 3/4, so it's way down, really close to the 12. It's going to give us a tiny piece here. This is a very heavy paper, so make sure that you're stabilizing, especially on pieces that are this heavy. And then 11.5 and 10.5, 8.25, 7.25, 6.25. Wow, lots of quarters there. Now for the 6.25 inch piece, we're going to rotate and cut at 8.5 and 4.25. You've got two photo mats now that are the same size for pockets, 7 and 8. And then this guy we're going to trim horizontally. This is the piece that fell from the end. We're going to cut at 6 and 3. And the two rectangles you made go in pocket 3 and 4. And there is a tiny little piece that fell off the end. That is a scrap. Next up, you've got two strips that are the same width. They're 1 inch wide. Both of them go in pockets 7 and 8. And all the rest of these strips, so you have this wide one, then a medium-sized one, and two really skinny ones. All of that goes in pocket 3 and 4. Kind of handy. Now we've arrived at our Cutaparts, and our Cutaparts are printed a little bit larger than 12 by 12 with the intent that you, the final user, will trim them down perfectly. Now the key to all of this working well and having all of your borders lined up is that you trim this outside edge away very accurately. I just got a request from a customer who wishes we would return to a time when we literally had a little hash mark by every single cut that needed to be made. But it frustrated me because we always had the hash marks, and I know it did a lot of you as well. So we just decided to put one on the outside, and I would proceed to give you all the measurements you need to cut. But unless that's accurate, your borders will not be consistent, and it might be a little frustrating. So just be very careful at this part. And I usually begin by just trimming outside of the guide for my first cut, because at that first cut, the paper is a little bit too large for me to see the edge of the blade at the bottom of the print. Okay, once I make that cut and I rotate one turn, I now can see quite easily the hash mark here at the top corner and the hash mark at the bottom. I can see the metal blade and how it aligns with that blade and make that slice. Now I rotate, and once again, I'm going to align the hash marks nice and perfectly. Rotate. Now I can look to my 12-inch edge, get a nice cut there, and then a final shaving will happen off of this edge. And unless you get those all neatly cut, then those strips might not be as straight as you would desire. So that first step is really important. Now here we're gonna go with, we want the words, every time I slip into the ocean, it's like going home. Let's put those in the upper right corner here. And I'm gonna give you that measurement that will help create that nice, even spacing between the two pieces. And that's gonna be 10.5, then 9, 8.25, 7.5, 5.5, and 3.5. I know that's a lot of cuts there. Lots of strips. And you can see, just how nice those borders are on both sides, and no little extra marks were needed to make that happen. I like to pick everything up since it's all strips. Nothing needs to be trimmed. And we're gonna file these. So this first wider piece goes in pocket 1 and 2, along with the other darker strip. The next one goes in 3 and 4, along with the yellow strip that came next. Both of those 3 and 4. Then you have this light minty strip that goes in 7 and 8. And we've got the ocean is filled with untamed magic, 1 and 2. And every time I slip in, 7 and 8. And that's the end of our first cut apart. We get to repeat that same task. Again, carefully lining up the hash mark with the edge of your blade. It's so important that you get that right so that you can be happy with the overall outcome. If you don't do well at this step, it's sort of like a little bit of a butterfly effect, It just ripples through the whole sheet, and then your borders aren't going to be all consistent. And I admit, I don't always get it perfect either, but I really try at this step to line it up as accurately as I can. You get the idea. Now I'm looking at the 12-inch mark for my last cleanup. And we're looking good. So with this piece, we're going to begin with the words on beach time on our right. And I will cut at 11, and then 10, all the way down to 8, and 4. Now a rotation. And we want to rotate so that the narrowest piece is on our right. It should say True Beauty. We'll cut at 10 and 6. All right, the 6-inch piece we'll place in pocket 3 and 4. And the next piece is a circle, and if you wanted to bring it to your die cut, if you have a huge punch or a thin die, I'll measure this for you. You're gonna need a 3 3/4 inch approximately cutting die, or you can just simply use scissors to trim this out of the circle. That goes in pocket 1 and 2. And this last piece, pocket 1 and 2 as well. And now I'll pick up our next strip. The gold tag should be on your right, and we'll cut this one at 10 1/2. 9, and 6. Now this piece, we have a few assignments. The fish from the upper right corner, you can just do a rough cut, and those go in pocket 1 and 2. And the shell, the green shell, is gonna go in 5 and 6, and all the rest of these pieces, I'll just do a quick separation again. We'll see how far we get with our cutting. All 3 of these are in 3 and 4. Finally, you have the dive deep that goes in 5 and 6. This little tag with the fishies, that's 5 and 6 also. And before you pop it in there, if you want, you could even use your trimmer to lob off the corners to create that tag shape. And that's for pocket 5 and 6. Or alternatively, you can eyeball it with scissors and just try to make that margin match on the ends. This one goes in pocket 3 and 4. So you have lots of choices. It's just a quick snip or a quick lob to create a tag out of just any rectangular piece of paper, which is so cool. Now we have our next strip. We have some journaling prompts here that should be on the right, and we'll cut at 9 and 6. So this guy, he goes in 5 and 6. And then we have our vertical journaling prompt for 7 and 8. And with the little fishies on this one going in 1 and 2. And then you have your 2 minty strips for 5 and 6. And of course, no scraps involved in the making of those Cutaparts, which is super cool, other than your little triangular shapes. Okay, I think that's the end of the trimming. And all that we really didn't use in this kit are these 2 little tiny pieces. So that's pretty impressive for 8 pages. No waste here at Club Scrap. We don't want to waste your time or your materials as we're making those half dozen pages. At this point, I want you to take the remaining stack of papers that you have and the whole stack, not just 2 sheets off the top. I want you to take 1 sheet off the top and slide it off to the right, and then leave the rest of the remaining pile on your left so that the center is at the seam of the 2 papers. This is the base for pages 7 and 8. And you heard that right. We're going to be starting from the back of a set of pages, working our way to the front or to the top. And we're not going to be using any adhesive at this point because it's possible that maybe we could miss a piece and want to fix or change or switch something out. And that way we can do that if we haven't stuck anything down. So looking at the bottom of page 4 of your instructions, you'll see an image of layout 7 and 8, and sure enough, the yellow is on the left and the wavy print is on the right. Then I'm going to reach into my accordion pocket file and grab the contents out of the last pocket labeled 7 and 8, so I can set up the pieces for my pages and just make sure I understand how everything's going to go together, and I'll share some assembly tips along the way. All right, I'm going to start right away with this die cut here. And it's so cute. I'm just going to right at the top of the page, and you could write in a little caption or something into that spot if you wish. And below that, I will add this little page title that says, "Every time I slip into the ocean, it's like going home." And I'll leave a little space between this piece and the title so that it looks like there's, you know, some colored contrast there. Now across the bottom of this page, I'm going to be adding this larger wave print here. And then I have the die cut that has that fun little wave to it. And I attached the die cut with foam adhesive just to add a little bit of dimension. It's really fun. Now you have some photo mats in your pocket. So I'm going to put one that goes into this title, and then one that just tucks maybe under here a little bit under this, so that it frames up with the title. So sweet. Now in the other page, I will add 2 horizontal yellow photo mats, and they're going to get pretty tight to the edge, but not touching the edge. Then, before I put that down, I'm going to show you the order of assembly here. That mint, we're going to start with the mint, okay? And he's going to go kind of in that lower right corner. Then I will add a yellow vertical strip right next to this, but not touching it, and then nest it with this guy. So that would be step 2 of your actual assembly. Now here you're going to take the other yellow strip. It's going to be horizontal, and you see it has this little dip in there. Actually, there's another little piece that can pop out, and that's going to go right here. And I have to ask your forgiveness. On my original, I somehow messed up with my paper measurements and ended up with more paper than I thought. I think I had to do a fix, and long story short, you're just going to have that yellow peeking out here a little bit on that area. And in that spot, I added that gorgeous Nautilus shell after topping it with some of the ribbon. By cutting the ribbon at a really steep angle, I was able to thread it on top of the shell, which gave it kind of a cool look. And then I finished that off with the 2 photo mats right here. And we have our journaling prompt. Now again, you're going to want to take off those corners. And I also used my slot punch to just add a little ribbon slide hole in this. And I threaded that with the gorgeous wide silk ribbon that you've got in your kit. I absolutely love this ribbon. It's so easy to work with and absolutely gorgeous. I always keep scissors that I only reserve for trimming fabric, so I always get a nice clean cut on my ribbon. And then once you attach this to where you want it to be, you'll just wrap the ends around to the back and secure that with your favorite adhesive, okay? So that is the page. Let me show you the finished touch. And again, this is going to be narrower for you. I did have to rework my yellow, and I mistakenly added 1/4 of an inch to my yellow. So regardless, you got that little yellow showing through, and then you'll add your ribbon to that if you can cut that at a steep angle. And then you just straighten out the cut after it's tied onto the top of the shell. Now, to adhere that, I used my bookbinding glue from a needle tipped applicator, and that shell isn't going anywhere. And as you can see, I did add the tag here with some foam adhesive to give a little bit of dimension. Now on the facing page, it's very, very basic. Just glued everything down exactly as I showed you, again, using the foam adhesive here. I tied a small bow with the yellow grosgrain ribbon and just attached it right below the raised die cut for a sweet little finishing touch there. All right, that was page 7 and 8. So I'm going to pick up this yellow sheet, just the one, and slide it on top of page 8. And that should reveal a gold, which I'll slide over. And now I have 2 sheets of gold. And if I grab my accordion pocket file, I can empty the contents of pocket 5 and 6. And I'm going to be looking now at layouts 5 and 6 on page 4 of my instructions. Let's see if we can recreate this with success here. We've got this strip that has the 2 full stripes on it, and then we have the one that has a little bit of a smaller. I'm going to rotate this so that the torn edge is at the top. And below that, I'm going to add the little strip that says on beach time. And then down at the bottom, there's going to be a green strip here that should nest with Life is Better in flip-flops. Now in between that, you've got a whole series of photo mats here that are in that green color. So there's going to be 3 small, 2 medium, and 1 large. The 2 medium are the ones that are going to fit right into here, okay? The 2 that match. And then the other larger one, that's going to go in the upper right corner. And below that, we'll add this gorgeous portion of that underwater print diagonally. So you have a nice little spacing in there. And then the 3 smaller mats are just going to go along the left edge here. So that will kind of be your order of page assembly. Make sure you start with the placement of this, and then everything kind of flows out of that. No pun intended. Okay, then you have your jellyfish here, and your Dive Deep, this little rectangular tag. And I did the same treatment where I punched the hole and added the ribbon. And you have this guy, your green, and then you have this piece. Now, if you happen to have a corner chomper or corner rounder punch, probably one of the first scrapbooking tools I bought in the mid 90s or early 90s, you can round the corners on the 1/4 inch radius or the smaller radius of the punch, and that will nest nicely with that little pop out from the die cut. And on top of that, I added the cute little octopus or jellyfish, whatever it is, charm, and 2 buttons. And I just glued them on. I didn't sew them or anything. I just glued them with our book binding glue. Super cute little embellishment that I placed right over here next to this jellyfish. You have the shell with the circle I added over here. You could put it over here as well and swap these around. Now that I look at it, might be a good idea. And then Jacqueline put a little cut silhouette around the shell so you don't have to worry about being super accurate with this cut. You just go around that little shadow with scissors, and you have a cute little way of finishing up the page on the left by balancing it with that guy. Adorable. So the finished page again, you can see here that I've punched my hole, my slot, and did that gorgeous ribbon wrap and attached this piece and the circle die cut with foam adhesive. On the facing page, I extended the use of my ribbon a little further. And if you have too much of the picture that will be covered by the ribbon, just put it on top of the ribbon. But I did leave it unattached so you could slide your picture beneath it just to keep that beautiful ribbon in the foreground. Attach this with foam adhesive, and then again, I was able to thread the grosgrain right on top of the charm. And by doing that, you know, the charm is small but mighty. So with a little ribbon attached, it brings the eye to the cute embellishment and the 2 little shell buttons there at the bottom. Nice, easy page for you. You'll finish it up in short order. And then I'm going to pick this gold paper up and slide it over. And that will expose 1 sheet of the seafoam, which then I will slide. And now I've got 2 pieces of the seafoam green, and I'm looking backwards, so I'm moving to page 3 at the bottom. This will be layouts 3 and 4. I'll grab my accordion pocket file, an empty pocket by the same name. Very good. Okay, now I'm going to take my seahorse portion. Now on the other one where the underwater print wasn't trimmed, the jellyfish is on the left. Now the seahorse is on the left and the jellyfish is on the right. I love that. You've got these little separator strips here. So I guess order of business, I should just check this before I start going crazy and laying things down. And again, this is why we don't adhere anything. I'm going to add this cool piece here. And for placement, again, when you're attaching your stuff, I'd recommend starting with these 2 pieces first. I know this is how I did it. And then you've got 1 yellow photo mat going here. So even with spacing on this, I allowed 1/4 inch from the edge of the page for the yellow. And I separated it by 1/4 inch. And that should give you a perfect little set of 3 pieces with equal spacing between them and the edges of the page. And then above it, you can add that same amount of space. Oh, but I did have a little strip of yellow first, just to anchor this beautiful die cut image here. Okay, so it's gonna be kind of like that. And then this covers the left edge. And this transitions your color again. So it creates a nice little frame. And next to that comes, this is the life. Now, do you see how there's a little circle in that? That's going to sit, the circle part is going to sit on top of the yellow strip, and that's sort of, you know, accented a little bit further. Love that. Oh, yeah, a lot of stuff in my hand here. What else can we get rid of? We've got this long yellow strip here, and it's going to nest with the yellow. And next up, we're going to have this wide yellow strip here. And it's going to nest with the head, the title, or the long border strip. And then 1 more strip. Now, this one I did kind of a fake. So this has the negative space from the file folder top, or the file tab. I'm going to hide it. So the print's going to be on the left. That little dip will be on the right. And then you're going to take that gold photo mat and just plop it right here with that beautiful page sentiment. And then you've got 2 yellow photo mats left. Those are going to be angled here at the top and nested with these prints. Now, I overlap them a little bit and make sure you're not touching any edges around here or anything. You might have to bring this down. Play around with your placement. Look at the image and kind of use that as your guide. This will be placed on the left side for nice balance. You'll trim out your little seahorse. He's going to go there. And then you're going to have 2 of these other images to cut out, those urchins. They're going to look so cool, and add a few buttons. Let me show you the details. Here, I had 2 yards of this beautiful yellow grosgrain. So I did one single like wrap and taped the ends on the back and then tied this little bow onto it, okay? That's one piece, 2 pieces really. It's the wrap and then the attached bow. Then I just did crisscross, crisscross. I just wrapped it around 1, 2, 3, 4, made 2 X's, trimmed the ends, attached on the back. So that's the ribbon going on there. And the facing page, here I stapled a piece of the folded grosgrain, again, to bring the ribbon to the other side. And in this case, I used a needle and thread and waxed linen thread to sew on the buttons, 1, 2, 3 buttons. I have to say, hindsight, I might recommend skipping that part and simply using the bookbinding glue to glue on the buttons. It worked great. And since these are actual shell buttons, they're slightly on the fragile side. So if the eye of your needle is too large, when you bring it through the hole, or maybe when you're piercing the hole to prepare the way for the needle, you could break the shell, which is what happened to me. So I don't want that to happen to you. Just glue them on. And if you really want to be brave, you can sew them on too. Totally up to you. But I'm just fair warning. And then you've got these 2 urchins here. Again, added with the foam adhesive for a nice layer of dimension. And that is, let's see, that was 3 and 4. My goodness. I'm going to slide 1 sheet of that sea foam over to the right. And that gives us, oh, I must have grabbed 2. Yes. We're going to put the green on the right. And then the last underwater print on your left. Find your accordion pocket file, and let's finish these up. Okay, let's begin with those 2 gold photo mats and add them to the left side. Now here's a little tip. I centered these. I actually used my ruler and centered them, but if you think you're going to have a lot of pictures, I might consider bringing them up to the top. And that allows room for another picture below these. Then you've got this wide strip here. And you're going to add the straight edge of this strip next. So it sits right next to it. Really cool. This will be round if you choose to trim it out. That's going to look nice there. And over on the upper page, I've got a nested title on the green. And I'll show you a little trick to keep that in the foreground. Right below that, you'll add your 2 vertical green mats, and then this larger strip goes beneath it. So you're going to have to make adjustments for spacing. This will go here, the tag will go here, the fishies will go here. That's all I have left. Now you're going to notice some very colorful action going on here, and you'll also notice that the jellyfish is in the foreground of the strip on this side. So let's talk about that. Well, first let's talk about the facing page. I always go backwards. So here we are on page 2, and I have a thin metal cutting die that has this little stitched edge, which I used on here. It's very, very sweet. Again, you'll need about a 3 3/4 inch-ish, or slightly larger is okay, slightly smaller is okay, to trim that out. Or alternatively, just use scissors to trim out a circle. No big deal. Did something cute here. I took a length of that metallic ribbon and put my swallow's tail in it, and then wrapped some yellow around it. Isn't that cute? Just like a little 2-color bow, 2-tone. I added the wax cord to the top of the jellyfish and put him in the little indentation of that strip. And then these were where I glued the buttons into place. I put the glue on the paper, brought the button to the paper. This was attached with foam adhesive as well. I always like my foam adhesive. It just adds so much. And then here, foam adhesive again, and this is just a double pile of ribbon, the gorgeous metallic gold, and then this is just over the top of it. I did use some adhesive to attach the gold ribbon to the page, and then this is just wrapped around and secured with tape. And I could have done the same thing. I could have put some yellow over this as well. I had plenty of ribbon to go around. Put the slot in the tag, wrap the ends on the back. Now this can maybe hard to see unless you're really looking at it, but that's that really cool resin fishtail charm that's in there. It's resin. It's got like glitter. It's so pretty. So that went there. Lastly, I placed my title where I knew it was going to be. You can still see the pencil mark. I made a pencil mark here and here, and where this jellyfish touched the edge of the paper as well. Then I took a craft knife and cut from mark to mark along the edge of the jellyfish, and then from the edge of the paper down to where I marked it as well. Then you can slide that paper right behind your slot so the jellyfish remains in the foreground. Is that required? Absolutely not, but it really gives it a nice look. If you're not comfortable with a craft knife, you don't have to do this. It's fine. If you think you could improve your craft knife skills, step one is to always make sure that you have a nice sharp blade. And if it's not performing well, maybe think about when's the last time you changed the blade of your craft knife. I also like to hold it like a pencil. It gives me a lot more control rather than the utility knife hold, which is more like this. When you're working with that detail with a pen knife like this, you definitely want to have that control you would have as if you were holding a pencil. Just my little tips there for you. And I believe that's the end of our layout assembly. All that's left now is for you to glue everything down. And yes, I know that takes a fair amount of time, but let me just advise you that if you happen to attend a group scrapbooking crop or event with your friends maybe once a year, you could literally go this far with your pages. I mean, you're already more than halfway there, right? Load it into a bag with your instructions and any other embellishments that you still have to add, and show up at your crop with everything prepped this far. And if you do that, you'll be able to sit down. You don't have to concentrate so hard because all the mental stuff is behind you. You've done all the thinking, right? You've done all the measuring. You've done all the temporary placing. And then you can sit with your friends and enjoy assembling your pages, adding photos, and considering it done. And all of them will be hauling in all this stuff that they're not going to use, and you will be the conqueror of the crop with your completed pages in massive piles. And I've seen it happen, and it's completely amazing. The feel of accomplishment and pride you'll have when you do this will be unbeatable and incomparable for sure. So give that a try. Consider it if you do attend crops every year. Otherwise, grab some of your adhesive and get going on wrapping up these Reef pages, and then add your photos. Again, I'm Tricia Morris from Club Scrap. Take a moment and make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Give us a like, leave a comment, and I look forward to seeing you in another workshop soon.